Hey there, all you creepers and reapers. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. I'm your co-hostess, Anna, and I'm here with...
Hey, Grievelings and Frightlings, it's me, Margaret, and I'm excited to talk about today's film. You can't see me, but I wore my Nexus 6 Replicant shirt because we are talking about a classic sci-fi movie that is just ripe with life, death, and grief themes. Anna, what are we talking about today?
We are going to be talking about none other than the original Bladerunner. And I have to say, this was my first time watching it. Thank you, Margaret, for the suggestion. Before we get too much into it, we've got triggers. Obviously, humanity in general is a big theme in this movie. Also, longevity, death, fitting in with the group, human selection processes, being left behind, behaving in ways that are not associated with normalcy, abiding by rules and regulations we had nothing to do with creating but have to follow. Am I missing anything?
I think you've got it all. This film really is, what does it mean to be human, and how do we determine what is human and who has the right to play God and either creating life and then deciding to end life. And I love the company that creates the replicants, their motto is more human than human. And that just stuck with me watching this movie because the replicants feel more human than the humans do. Yeah,
it's almost okay. And I have to say, this film really reminded me of astrology. Part of the reason I'm a Libra, right? Libra is the only sign that's associated with a machine. And it's the whole balance of things. So a lot of the time, like, when a Libra is done with someone, they turn into a robot. So I kept thinking about that throughout the whole film, and how many, like you said, the humans that were left on Earth that didn't go to another planet because they didn't qualify or whatever reason, they're behaving in very routine, robotic ways. Versus the replicants, they're trying to figure out who they are, what's going on, how they can sustain their existence. And I found that to be just really fascinating. It was really interesting to me, kind of this dynamic, because I think for us, we think of AI and robots and those sorts of things as these very linear existences. And in Blade Runner, it's quite the opposite.
yes, I agree. As you start to touch on, so right, we're here in the future. Actually, it's the past if you watch it now, but when it was made, it was the future. And humans have essentially destroyed the planet. And so if you're living on Earth, like Anna said, it's because you don't qualify, or maybe you have a job that keeps you on Earth. And so replicants have been created to go fight wars and to mine and get resources and do things that humans don't want to do. In the book, it's based on what is his name? Last name's Dick. So he wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And in the book, it is fascinating because if you want a pet, you have to have an android pet. You can't have like real pets anymore. So the main character, Harrison Ford character, I think has a sheep that he takes care of on the roof of his apartment building, and his neighbor has a horse, and now these are like sought after. Also in the book, I just want to share, they have like these machines that you get to decide on your mood. I need to be excited for work today, so I'm going to set my machine to I'm going to be excited for work. And so like right there, how the humans are becoming more like androids. And in this film, I think Anna and I both agree, we've talked about it, the androids actually, they admit more emotion than the humans. They seem more human than the humans do, even though somebody's like, you know what, I need for you to go fight this war, I'll give you 6 years of life, and that's all you get.
Oh, totally. And I think a lot of the replicants that we're exposed to, the feelings that they feel. So we have the raging replicant that's discovered to be what they are in the beginning, right? And the amount of just anger that they feel is very human, because we've all felt that way on the inside. Maybe we haven't let it out, but I think that we all were like, okay, I've been that angry before. Or I've felt such a ball of emotion, and that's reflective in him. And then, of course, Daryl Hannah's character and the other male replicant, their love and passion for each other. It boggles my mind, because they're supposed to be robots, yet they have these intense feelings and wants and desires and needs relative to one another. And then, of course, Harrison Ford's character falls in love with Sean Young's character, who's also a replicant. Although I've told Margaret this, I was convinced at the end we would find out Harrison Ford was actually a replicant and that Sean Young was human and also a Bladerunner. But no, that did not happen. But it's wild. And when you think about it, like talking about robotic electronic pets, these sorts of things, all of these rules and regulations that the humans in charge are putting on other humans are taking their humanity away from them, are taking those philosophical applications that we pride ourselves on, even though maybe we don't always want to experience that thought process. We're so capable of having it, right? And then you have the replicants, they're like questioning, what is the meaning of all this? Why am I here anyway? How can I sustain being here? These are the questions that we're supposed to ask ourselves as humans. And the humans in the film are totally devoid of any of that.
Oh, I agree. They're like burned out. They're just done. They're just punching the clock, essentially. Yeah. And then, like you said, like here's these replicants, and they're wanting to know what is life and how can they have more of it. And I think even we look at the little guy who has all the androids with him that the replicants seek out, because they're hoping that he can extend their life because he is part of their creation. And that loneliness, that he seeks companionship with his little robot creations. And how often are people lonely, and we seek companionship through artificial means, social media, movies, TV, to get our connection. And he really reflects that, because the humans, like Anna was saying, they are so disconnected. The replicants, they've created their family, the four of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've bonded, they have, these connections with each other. And the humans that are left on Earth, I mean, their family units, friendship units, relationships, they've all been shattered because, even if you do get to go to another planet, there's no guarantee you're going to be on the same colony as the people that you've been connected to on Earth. So, it's just really, to me, it seems like those in charge in Blade Runner are experts at fragmenting relationships and jeopardizing the human race in general. And what I would love to know and learn more about is everyone on the colonies too. How do they view the replicants? How do they view themselves? How do they view one another? Do they think of themselves as humans? Do they think of themselves as alien now because they're no longer on Earth? Is human even a word only to use for Earthlings? Like, I'm just very curious about those things.
Those are like great questions. I wonder too, we get the sense in the movie that the replicants really are there to serve humankind. We look at Daryl Hannah, and then the other one who dances with the snake. They're like pleasure models, or like combat pleasure models, or whatever it was. So then again, well, we need to have this body here to please, I'm going to assume, the male population, because I don't think any male replicants we were introduced to were, oh, these are the male pleasure models.
Yeah, they're not.
Maybe. Yeah.
No, they're like, and you're right, though. I was watching it, and I'm like, all the female replicants are beautiful. The male replicants, for my taste preferences, okay, I didn't see, like, a male replicant who resembled like 50 Cent. So they were not my type at all. No 50 Cent male replicants, no, Jared Leto replicants, nothing in that genre at all. So they're definitely, they kind of actually, and I feel bad describing them as this, but they reminded me of kind of just like that clueless guy. That's like that stereotype of like, oh, look at that guy. He's kind of clueless. He doesn't know what's going on. Like just from their aesthetic is what you would expect. You wouldn't expect like sexual prowess or masculinity or strength. They just didn't have that kind of going on for them.
Yeah, they were made to serve a function for the humans. And even the humans acting shocked that, oh my gosh, these replicants, what are they doing? We just have to go kill them. And again, they're disposable. They're meant to do the grunt work. They're there to do the other work because human life is more precious than replicant life, which is heartbreaking because we really see Rutger Hauer's character too, really like he's advocating for that. His famous quote, lost like tears in the rain, when he's talking about all these things he's seen, all these things he's experienced. And when he dies, it's going to be lost like tears in the rain. And I remember when I first heard that and I was in my adolescence, that just like stuck with me. So like, that is so true. Our tears get lost in the rain.
Yeah.
And when we die, that's what happens to our life, unless we have built a legacy or we have done things. And our listeners know Anna and I are huge components of what are you doing so that your life is not getting lost like tears in the rain. So that there are these touches, your immortality, these ways that you remain alive to the people that knew you, loved you.
Yeah. And sometimes your legacy doesn't have to be a prolific work of art or, being a famous sports star, or any of those things. Your legacy can simply be living your life on your own terms, the best way that you know how. And that's perfectly wonderful.
Because you don't know whose life you've touched, and the replicants really do show us that. Like, they've touched each other's lives. When the snake dancers killed, they are mourning. They're like, oh my gosh, we've lost this person. She was important to us.
And it's unfortunate too that, the Bladerunners are supposed to destroy these replicants. The humans created them in the first place. So you're putting all of your care and thought and want and expectations into these replicants only to destroy them. And like, to me, I'm like, whoa, what a great metaphor for the familial pressures and how they relate to those within the family unit, right? You're putting all of your love and care and hopes and dreams into your partner, your kids, your grandkids, your siblings, whatever it is, only to be disappointed and express that in some way that is destructive, right? And that, I think, is a huge loss, right? So I feel like we're not just talking about the death and the loss of these replicants. I think that when we take that first layer off, how many of us have grieved for disappointing our friends, our family, our loved ones? How many of us beat ourselves up or have beaten ourselves up for the disappointment we felt that we've caused for others, or for making decisions that were healthy for us, but no one else agreed with? Or on the other side of that, you make a decision for the good of the group, for the good of the whole, according to everyone else's expectations, but it's not what you want. And I really feel like the replicants represent that in a very strong and broad way.
Oh, definitely. They represent so much of what's wrong with humanity, even one set of people is going to decide this is what we need. So we are going to have this group of people that are going to execute it. They're going to be the ones that do the hard labor, the grunt labor, and we are going to use them as if they're disposable. And we can see that throughout human history, that there are these hierarchies in our human dynamics where one group of people use the labor, the resources of another group of people, and then treat them like they're disposable, and then can't understand why that other group of people is angry, hurt, sad, fighting back. And I feel like the replicants really embody that. We have emotions too. We're human too. We want to live. We're not just here to benefit you, to make your life easier. And it feels like in the movie they really show that like the Bladerunners, the humans that are human, are like, ugh, like blah, like do your job, replicant, serve me. And it's heartbreaking because again, like we've said, the replicants are more human than the humans in this movie. The humans are, I don't know. How did you feel about Harrison Ford's character?
So the thing with Harrison Ford's character, and it really pissed me off, was when it alludes to him having sex with Sean Young's character. He's like, do this. Like, you're still a replicant. You need to serve me. And I was like, this is a misguided lust if I've ever seen one. And it's hard for me because I know that a lot of people do think of this as a love story, which is fine. That's absolutely great for you. To me, a love story is like the movie True Romance. A lot of people don't agree with that, so I totally get it, and that's totally fine. But I think that, at the end of the day, it is still that mentality of you're a replicant, you're here to serve me. And also I do wonder how much love was really there versus the idea of, okay, well, these are my choices because there aren't many humans left. Better to have something for a small while than nothing at all. And I don't know. Like I said, I was convinced he was a replicant because he was acting more robotic than almost any other character. What do you think, Margaret?
Agree with you. As you were saying, like, this is a love story. I was like, if there's a love story, it's between Daryl Hannah and Rutger Hauer's character. Like, they have true, feels like they have love, positive. Yeah, a connection, positive regard. Harrison Ford, that was cringy. Like, he definitely was perpetrating on her. And then, like you said, it's almost like, well, you're a replicant, and her having to be reminded, oh, yeah, I'm here to serve you. I'm subservient. So I really don't want to do this with you, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and have to. And then he's just like, yep, okay. And then it's more about him and his struggle falling in love with a replicant, not, wow, I actually just violated a person. I just forced somebody to kiss me. No, oh my gosh, I'm a bad guy because I'm in love with a replicant. I was kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, it was just very strong. And I mean, to me, like the humans that are left on Earth, we see it, at the sex show, that it's just, there is no want or desire for the human connection. It is just all like impulse driven. And it's just such a lack of humanity, and it's scary. I think the other thing too is, why does the human replicant relationship have to be so controversial in the first place? And, I would assume that if replicants are there to serve humans, right, they're doing construction, they're doing all of these different things, there probably are other models that help people who are ill with their medications and navigating their daily lives. People have robot pets. Like, the way that they're becoming a normal part of life, but also treated as something so beyond, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, you can't have one and the other. It just does not seem to be logical.
Yes, I agree. And it's like you touch on again that it's not okay for the hierarchy
Mm-hmm.
to have romantic relationships or feelings for the group of people that are designed to serve, when that
Yeah.
is what happens historically. Again, if you're in this lower hierarchy, then
Mm-hmm.
if you're in the upper hierarchy, now you're looked down upon because you cannot have relations with somebody who is deemed less than
Mm-hmm.
you, because no, that's wrong. So you have to stay in your class or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And like Anna was saying, and then the humans are, they're not appeasing
No.
people. Like you watch this movie and you're like, I think I would rather be a replicant and have like
Mm-hmm.
6 years of life than
Yeah.
have to just be miserable for who
Mm-hmm.
knows how long as a human.
Oh yeah. I mean, 6 years of a full appreciated life is so much better than a much longer span of just unpleasantness. And you're right. There's a lot of caste system type themes and um, automation in terms of behavior towards those in other rungs of the caste ladder. One thing, though, for the replicants, it really made me think about how their perspectives change when they realize that they are replicants and that they only have limited time, right? So you're going along, like doing your bot stuff, whatever, and then you realize you're a replicant. And, oh my God, my battery only lasts this long. It reminded me so much of when people find out that they're terminally ill. Because we're living our lives, getting caught up in regular, mundane, everyday BS, whatever, getting distracted from what we really could think about and appreciate. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I have this degenerative illness. I have a year to live and then I'm done.
I love that take, right? That it is that our response to terminal illness. And the tragic thing is that so many of these replicants, they were created to essentially be slaves, to do manual labor, to do
Mm-hmm.
the grunt labor. And so they're not even enjoying life, and they
Yeah.
want what the humans have, and to be like, okay, and like Anna said, now I'm terminal. I don't want to be fighting your
Mm-hmm.
wars or building your colonies. I want to be able to have these things that you have that you're not even appreciated. And so often
Mm-hmm.
in terminal illness, that's when we say, oh, what am I not appreciating that I do have or that I want, and I want to start
Mm-hmm.
appreciating. And that death often brings that awareness. And again,
Yeah.
you're going to get tired of hearing Anna and I say it. So often we just live life like death's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we miss out on all these ways that, like, the replicants are truly living
Yes.
life. Think about in the movie when they're like, why would a replicant take a photo? Why
Mm-hmm.
do humans take photos?
Exactly. Well, and the thing is, too, I feel like the replicants are like the birds are singing, the sun is shining. The humans are like darkness, and not like fun darkness in a horror movie, just like that's all they see is the negative side of everything. And um how once again, how easy is it to in everyday life get caught up in the things that don't really matter?
Mm-hmm.
And Margaret and I were talking earlier just about updates on our full-time gigs and some other projects we have going on. And I think this is a really important and good time to bring up having those safe friends that you can talk to that kind of remind you, hey, this might not be as expected, but don't get caught up in what's going on right now. You're doing great. Let's talk about the positive things and bounce those off of each other and really focus on that. And, to have people in your life that you can philosophize with and ask questions like, do you think there's a reason that we're here? Do you think this happens because of A, B, or C? Or do you have a totally different idea? It's very important to identify those persons and have them in your life. And I mean, honestly, like I have a very small handful of people. Margaret is one of them. And I know a couple others who tend to listen to our podcast, you know who you are. When you meet them, you recognize that spark in that other person. And like, don't ever let that go. Keep them in your life at some capacity because they will help you in ways that you can't even imagine. And you'll do the same for them.
First off, oh, thank you. I agree. And likewise, you have that group of people. And again, Bladerunner really illuminates that. It's the replicants that have that group of people. They are 4 different dynamic personalities. Right? We have the dancer, and she feels more like she's easygoing. Then you've got Daryl Hannah, who she's a spitfire. Like she's a handful. Then we've got the guy that really feels like he wants to like understand, like when he's getting interviewed, he's like, why would I do that? Why am I there? What is going on? And then Rutger Hauer, who's just like, I want to experience life, and they accept each other. Then you got the humans, and they're more annoyed with each other. Harrison Ford's annoyed with his boss. He's annoyed with his partner, who's just kind of like, what are you doing? What's going on? And Harrison Ford's just like, nah.
Yeah.
I guess you can tell by listening. Neither Anna and I were very impressed with Harrison Ford's character. We're just like, you're just a whiny guy. Like,
yeah, I just got a case of the grumpies, and I didn't care for it. I mean, the other thing too that I really thought about with the replicants is, and I don't know. I mean, I'm really interested in your take on this, but I was thinking about someone in my life who had a multitude of addiction issues, and they're still around. They're still struggling and battling every day. And I love them dearly. People have remarked, like, what a waste of a life. How can you do that to yourself, right? And to me, I think about the replicants in the sense of wanting to know, wanting to appreciate, wanting to love life. And from my perspective, this person in my life, and I think it would be a venture to say many people that are experiencing and struggling through addiction want to know about life. They want to appreciate life in other ways. It's finding a means to work through what's driving the substance use disorder or the addiction in the first place. And, you know, if you're listening and you're struggling, there are so many different supports and avenues out there for you. Please, 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 if you are thinking about seeking help, get in touch with us. You can message us through social media. You can send us messages to our email address. We're happy to look for supports near you and make suggestions that may be helpful to you. You don't have to continue on dreaming only of what your life experience could potentially be. You have the right and the ability and the capability to achieve that. Yes, it is going to take work. And yes, there will be times that it will be very hard. But in the end, it will be so worth it.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. And yes, find your resources. And as Anna touched on, addiction so often is that it's like the humans in our movie. They're just, life has been harsh, life has been cruel. And so, how do we deal with that? And addictions is one way that we numb the pain from everything we've had that's happened in our life. And remembering, you can become that replicant. You can regain that love, that zest for life, that desire to be alive and to not want to die.
Totally. I mean, evolution is part of the human experience, right? So we're all consistently evolving and changing and becoming newer, different versions of ourselves. And I would implore you to think about what not only makes you a newer version of yourself, but a better, more sustainable, happy version of yourself. And I really do hope, once again, anyone out there who's struggling and listening to this, I hope the best for you. Know that at least there are 2 people you can immediately identify right now, Margaret and myself, who want good things for you. The world is not only full of the downside, there are good things out there for you.
Yes. Agree. There's hope. There's light. There's beauty. Sometimes we just have to look a little harder. Sometimes we just have to dig in the mud to find it.
Totally. I agree with you. Yeah, and I think a lot of these themes that are coming out, I think are really because of humanity, because of the challenges that we face, the unexpected things that impact us, that impact those around us. Realistically, in normal conversation in everyday life in Western society, of course, referring to the United States because that's where we both are, um, you don't hear people talking about someone who's ill. You don't hear people talking about someone who's going through an addiction issue. You don't hear about even someone talking to another person in normal conversation about someone experiencing grief or loss or changes or, any of those things. And these are all things that we should talk about. We should be able to encourage each other. We should be able to help each other. And in quite honesty, even if the end result of the situation that someone else is going through is death, you can make the time between now and then pleasurable for them. You don't have to focus on what's going to happen 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now, because you have all this time in between, and don't forget that.
Yes, I love that point, right? How do we engage in life? And I feel like you really touched on the shift we see with Harrison Ford's character after he watches Rutger Hauer's character die. Rutger Hauer has that beautiful speech really saying, like, I didn't live a life. Like, I've seen these horrors and I want to love life. I want to have these experiences and I'm dying. And then he dies. And so then Harrison Ford runs away with Sean Young's character, that switch to say, how am I living life? I'm actually just like the Walking Dead in my day-to-day life. And
Yeah.
I want to live life, and I want to live life with somebody who does not know how long they have. And I think at the end he touches on that her creator said she had so many years, and she actually had way more years than what she had been programmed to have, because she was like the new, like, test model. Like, how human can we make replicants actually?
Totally. And there is life out there to experience, and I think that's a big takeaway from the movie, is that life is out there. Enjoy it. Don't get caught up. Don't put yourself on autopilot. Like, how many of us in regular, quote unquote, normal everyday life, you just find yourself on autopilot? Okay, I get up, I do my chores, I eat breakfast, I go to work, I come home, I make dinner, I go for a run, I go to sleep, or whatever it is, right? So you're on autopilot. Think about like all of the other things in between those tasks that you could be enjoying, and don't forget what's important to you, and try to make time for that if and when you can, even if it's just 60 seconds a day.
Yes. Enjoy life. Live life. Think about life. If you're a replicant and you only have X amount of time, how are you living life? How are you enjoying life? How are you being engaged?
Completely, totally, and for sure. Like, and also I think that it's important not to get caught up in the idea of how others expect us to live our lives, right? The replicants are a great example. The humans are like, oh, okay, you're here to work, or you're here to do this for me, or do that. And they have no say and no choice than that.
Yeah. Agreed. They're there to serve a function. And that's why they run away, because they want to be able to have choice. And how, as humans, do we honor our choice? And like Anna's saying, other people's choices.
Totally. This is totally off key, but the only robot pet we see in the whole movie is the snake. That just occurred to me.
Yeah.
And I find that something to comment on, because how many people have a fear of snakes, right? Religious texts dictate that they're not like the most trustworthy, best animal selection. So I find it remarkable that that's the critter that was chosen. And also, it enhances the behavior of this replicant to appease the humans and what she's doing. Like, we presume what's going on with that robot snake. Poor robot snake. But it goes to show like the lack of humanity, right? And I just think that that was such a choice in the film, right? Because we don't know anything about the sheep or the horse, and no one has like a little robot bunny rabbit or anything like that, things that we consider more cute and cuddly and reliable. It's a snake. Not to mention the whole
I love that you bring that up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just like saying, like, I love that you brought up the snake, and like right there, the symbolism of snakes are not to be trustworthy, or snakes are, especially for the dancer, seen as part of her sexuality to make her that much more sensual, and that it is a snake. And who is the snake in the grass in Bladerunner? The Bladerunners, the humans, not the replicants.
Yeah, and I think too, like, when you look at it from an introduction perspective, like, okay, I'm out and about, I'm still on planet Earth for whatever reason. Somebody comes up to me and we're chit-chatting. Oh, what do you do for a living? I'm a Bladerunner. I kill robots. What? You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay. That's cool.
It seems like all the jobs left on Earth are service industry, are not pleasant jobs. Like, we have like that busy market where you can get all kinds of whatever goods and all kinds of food. It just seems very seedy. It feels like the people left on Earth are like the lowest of the low. All the rich, all the other people were able to escape. And so and what is that saying about humanity? That, again, the caste systems, that if you're lower, then you must be.
Like, let's regress to segregation. We're not only segregating the replicants, we're also segregating ourselves again. And, the colonies and the planets, I'm sure that they're financially based as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing that the grunt, the laborers, the less desirable, like we see, the people left on Earth are essentially living in poverty. The guy, the co-creator, he's living in poverty. He's living in the building that has the leaks and it's run down, and like, life is not good on Earth. No,
not at all. And it's almost like out of sight, out of mind, right? They're forgotten because they're still on Earth and everyone else is somewhere colonized that's not Earth.
Yes. It really is speaking to, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that, the leader of the organization, right, is still on Earth. We see that he has all of these worldly material things, but it can't bring him any comfort or solace or even survival in the end. And I think that is really relational to filling the hole in the soul, right? Like, how many of us feel empty and devoid? Oh, well, if I get a salary bump of $20,000 a year, I'll feel like more of a person. Or if I buy these shoes, I'll have status. I'll be this, I'll be that. But it doesn't bring you that. Yeah, for 5 or 10 minutes you feel good, but then you're back to feeling how you were before that. And it's really important. Once again, the humanity theme. We have to ask ourselves questions about, why are we here? What are we doing? How can we encourage others? How can we really live the best life we have? Because we're all on borrowed time. I mean, I think I read that the average male expectancy for life right now is like between 78 and 84. And for females, it's between like 81 and 87. So, okay, whatever age we are, do the math. How long do you have left according to that?
And what are you doing with that life? And how are you living your life and honoring your life. And I love how Anna also brings up, and the life of others. It's not just about how you are honoring your life and engaging in life. It's what are you doing to help the life of others, to help the next generations so that they have a better life, or maybe you have an amazing life and they have just as equal amazing life as you. How are you giving back? And Blade Runner has that very bleak future that no, we're so highly individualized that we're not thinking about everybody else or how do we help people. Again, the caste system. If you're a replicant, you're less than, and they can't even see, like, okay, if you're a replicant and you've got 6 years to live, how do you, maybe we let you retire 5 years into your service and then you get to enjoy life, or maybe we don't make life so hard for you to begin with.
Totally. And there's no real humanitarianism in the entire film. There's no kind of philanthropic anything that can be seen, even with the humans or the replicants. There's nothing that is displayed in such a wide way to show like we can still care about each other. I think that was very frightening for me to see. It was very dystopian.
It was highly dystopian. It's a very thought-provoking film on how do you feel about life? What are you doing with your life? What's important to you? And what does it mean to be human?
And I think it's something that's really good for all different ages because, in certain age groups, you have very different perspectives on things. I think that particularly in our young adulthood, which is like 20s to early 30s, we're so concerned with the status quo and living up to these standards and outdoing ourselves or others and those sorts of things. And then when you reach kind of middle adulthood, which is the majority of your 30s through mid to late 50s, so that's a big chunk of your life, you become more comfortable with who you are, and your concern shifts because typically you have offspring, you may have family members you're caring for, those sorts of things. So you're more concerned about others. And then once we're past that, Margaret and I have not made it past middle adulthood. So we're talking about theory when we get to the geriatric time frame. When you get to that point, it seems like there's even more concern with reflecting and telling our stories, helping others learn from our experiences. If the podcast is still around in about 30 years, we'll let you know firsthand. But
yes,
I mean, it just seems like the way that our thoughts and concerns and ideas shift throughout our ages. When I was 22 and I was like, well, what am I doing with my life? It was more of like goals and ascertaining and monetary status and those things. 10 years after that, kind of different. And then a little bit after that, it's currently is very different. So it's just based on experience, age, longevity, those sorts of things. And I think it's important always to question ourselves what we're doing with our lives and see if those answers make sense and see if they really fit where we are as individuals too. There's no handbook for this. There's no instruction manual. You have to go at your own pace and do what's best for you.
Yes, I completely agree. And I'm wondering, Anna, if you're starting to see like this shift from older generations that had to be in survival mode, that really it was that, well, we have to survive. And then feels like Gen X kind of started to turn that, like, okay, survival mode's not working. And so then the generations that are following feels like they do have this more humanitarian view, more like, okay, I might be 22, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and I do know that I don't want my life to hurt others. I do know that I want to lift up others. I do know that the way the world is working right now, it's not working. So how do we give a voice to the voiceless? How do we start to change it? And I really appreciate that. It almost feels like Bladerunner could be a warning. Like, if you're not careful, this is where society could go. And I see so many people. I know so many people that are so passionate about making the world a better place, changing the systems that no longer work. They no longer serve. And again, Anna and I are in the US. They don't serve the American society anymore. I mean, they serve the elite people in our society, but not everybody. And that the turning of the tides, which is exciting and also terrifying to live through, because we can see that dystopian future coming sometimes with some of the political people. We have some of the very passionate people that really could force us into that dystopia.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of the viewpoints and actions that are more antiquated, are very much a disservice. I think the frightening thing for me, though, is also, and I'm a millennial. If you're a millennial and you're listening, maybe you've thought about this too. Even Gen Xers, the history that we grew up hearing about, that our grandparents and parents went through, it's just a page in a book now, right? There's no one to orate those things. And I do wonder if a lot is going to be lost, because there's such a difference between reading about something or Googling something and hearing someone talk about their personal experience or having lived through it yourself. And that's what really worries me sometimes. Not to sound like a, ageist or anything, because that's certainly not my intention, but just to say, okay, well, this is happening right now. Historically, these are things that have happened. How can we ensure that this situation does not reflect XYZ, right? Because as the silent generation quickly is dwindling, we don't have their memories, we don't have their stories. The boomers, yes, they have a very, very interesting way of expressing themselves sometimes, but without them, none of us would be here. So we got to give them that. But, as they retire, as they age, we're going to be missing their stories. So now we're passing down the information we were given from our elders, but we have no firsthand experience. So how do we keep that momentum going while reinforcing the importance of those stories?
I love that you brought that up and really touched on something huge, that we come from, sadly, generations that had to assimilate to being in the US. And so all these stories that are lost, the boomers, the silent generation, I can speak from my experience. Like, my parents weren't sharing anything. If I was like, what was this like for you? Life was hard, or, they were mean, and I wouldn't get contact. So I can't speak for other Gen X parents. I find myself as a Gen X parent almost oversharing. Like, my poor kiddo, I'm like, okay, da 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 da. I go to the doctor. I'm like, okay, this is blah blah blah. Because when I go to the doctor and my doctor's like, okay, family history, I'm like, well, I know my mom had hysterectomy. I couldn't tell you why. I know my dad had some skin stuff. I couldn't tell you why. Like, it was like hush, hush, hush. So now I'm like, okay, kiddo, this is what I know. These are the stories I know, or these are where our ancestors are from, and these are the stories that I have heard or I have researched. So I might be like, I can't tell you for sure what happened in Wales, but I can tell you I had family from there, and this is what's important. And I wonder if for so many Americans, they grieve that there's this rich history, this rich culture that they come from, but because their families were so busy trying to assimilate, that now we don't have that. And then you're just like, oh, like I've shared with Anna on this podcast before, my dad was highly superstitious. Learned later on, Scottish people, very superstitious people. It would just be like, you spilled the salt. Did you throw it over your shoulder? don't give a knife. You can't give somebody a pocket knife. You don't do that. Why? That's just, and then, so how do we honor the grief that we are missing a lot of our culture? And then how do we empower ourselves to learn that culture? Go explore where your family's from, read their myths, celebrate their holidays, bring that into your family to be like, okay, well, I know we're not from this country and I know this is a valuable holiday. So how do we bring it in our American context?
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. And I really enjoy the idea of exploring and learning, and there are so many resources at our fingertips now. You don't have to wait to go to the library and see if a book's available. You can find so many things on so many different platforms and really get to experience the history of your own culture and so many other people's cultures. And I think that's really what it's all about, is so we can really appreciate one another more and, learn so much from each other.
Yes. Ooh, yes. Let's learn from each other. Let's celebrate each other's holidays and honor it and be curious. And whew.
Yeah.
So, Anna, who do you most relate to in Bladerunner?
That's a good question. Not Harrison Ford, I can tell you that right away.
No.
I feel like I kind of related most to Daryl Hannah's replicant character, not just because I have a similar haircut, but also because of her zest for life. Like, I think that she, even though it's, her relationship that she's most impassioned about, she has found something that she has connected to and she cares so much about, and she doesn't mind telling everyone that, and she'll do whatever she can to kind of support that and cultivate whatever it can be, and just her intensity, but also her like ingenuity and her genius. I mean, she thinks to pretend that she's another one of the harmless creations that the guy had made when Harrison Ford is skirting through, right? I think that she's looking at solutions that aren't of the norm, and I don't know. I like to think I think differently, so we'll go with that. How about you, Margaret?
I agree. You do think differently. Oh, I would have said like his partner, the one that like leaves the origami like little like figures, because it's almost like, I'm here, I see you. But then I'm like, and he's part of the problem. Like he is that human that's just killing people. So then, and when I first saw the movie back in my adolescence, I loved Rutger Hauer. And so I was a little scared to watch it again because I just put him on a pedestal like my whole life. And then when I rewatch it, I'm like, I still relate to him. I still relate to wanting to live life. And so often in life, how we feel forced to do something. And like Anna touched on earlier, then we're trying to like get out of that. And our family's like, no, you belong in this lane. And Rutger Hauer's like, I know this is my lane. And everybody's like, no, you need to be in that lane. And how so often that happens in life. We're like, let me be in this lane. Let me be peaceful. I don't want to be this that you created me to be. And just how he like seems like both him, Daryl Hannah, all the replicants just have this love for life, this admiration that life is beautiful, because life is beautiful. Every day there's something beautiful that we can find in the day. So yeah.
Oh, I totally agree. And I have to, I think we all know at this point, I love Lana Del Rey. One of her songs, one of the lyrics is, "Oh, what can I do? Life is beautiful, but you don't have a clue." And it's so easy to lose sight through all of the mundane BS of how beautiful life is and how beautiful it is to impact another life positively. And, anyone out there who's listening, keep fighting the good fight. Like, if you can positively impact one other human being in this world, you're doing a great job. So don't ever doubt that. And don't forget your humanity, because you don't want to end up as a Blade Runner.
No. Like Anna's saying, it's the ripple effect. Smile at somebody, say hi, be friendly. You don't know what kind of day that they're having, and a smile, a hello, how are you can go so far in somebody's day. It doesn't have to be, oh, I have to donate all this money or I have to volunteer. I mean, if you have those resources available, yes. If not, just these little things that we can do every day.
Definitely. Oh, well, I think that this has been really good. I'm enjoying getting into the sci-fi a little bit more. I cannot wait for our next episode. We've got some really fun, kind of cool stuff in store for you guys, and we invite you to finish up your little cup of bruja brew, take a rest in the casket, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.